Shalom, call halal Yahweh Bashim Abishai, Bashim Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered among the heathen nations that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners, and to the Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. Let's let a little bit of this play.
Lock the doors, because what I'm about to say is going to upset some people right next here. Okay.
Because truth of the matter is, the truth always upsets people. The truth is a very hard pill to swallow. And basically, I'm going to do just a quick overview, very quick history lesson that's going to match up exactly with what he's saying, except it's going to make the separation between the dark-skinned Africans and the dark-fleshed Israelites. Okay? So let's grab a quick scripture to describe the biblical Jews of the Bible. Just like if, I got books to show you relics of the so-called tribe of or I would say of the Judeans of the Bible, and the relics and the images of the ancient Hamitic people in the land of Canaan, and the images and the relics of the Israelites were similar in complexion, and that's about it. They were similar in complexion, and they both had woolly hair, but their physical features, facial features, are very, very different. As you can see that today, and over the years, over the last couple centuries, they have intermingled and intermixed. But nevertheless, you still can see the difference between a Hamite and an Israelite in most cases. But this is Jeremiah the 14th chapter, starting at the 2nd verse. And it reads, and this is speaking about the Jews of the Bible, the tribe of Judah. All right? And it says, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. And it says they are black like the ground. And anyone who wants to dispute it, when you go look that word up in the Hebrew, which is the original text this was written in, the word there is going to be kadar. And the word kadar literally means dark-skinned. So when it says they were very dark, like the ground, like the earth, and the earth is different shades of brown. Not actually black, but brown. Okay, that's just the English translation. All right? Not black like his coat, his jacket. No one's skin color is that color. Even the darkest of Africans, the darkest of Indians, the darkest of Israelites have a hue to their color. Hamites are almost like bluish. They're like I heard a girl once crack a joke called a Hamite purple. All right. Well, Jake has those red tones in their brown skin. That's where you get the word ruddy. When you look up ruddy human beings, ruddy people, the first people that pop up are some brown skinned men with those red tones in their skin. Or if you look up ruddy horse, a ruddy cow, a ruddy dog, a ruddy duck, you're gonna get a dark brown with a reddish tone. Not someone that looks like the guy that's on the screen. That's basically telling you somewhat of the truth. But see, Esau, when he tells you the truth, he still tells you a lie, because he has to control the narrative. And that's why, as in the title, it said African. And what they don't like to explain to you is that the people on the west coast of Africa, along the all those nations that developed along the nigger river, that goes into out of the so-called Mideast down into or what you would call the Niger River, all right, which is really the Nigger River, And I can actually prove that. That's how it was actually pronounced. Those countries that set up along it, Mali being one of them that he mentions, those nations were full of Israelites. Okay? As a matter of fact, now that I said that, let's get it. I think that's in Acts the 13th chapter, when it refers to the to some of the disciples as nigger, meaning simply just meaning dark flesh. This is Acts 13:1, and it reads, "Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called nigger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul." So even if you refer to as nigger, it still goes back to nigger. But I'm going to prove that it's actually pronounced nigger with a source of information that's behind me. Trusty 1933 Winston Simplified Dictionary Encyclopedic Edition. 1933. Okay, Winston Simplified Dictionary Encyclopedic Edition. 1933. Let's go to the word nigger, and I'm going to put it in camera and put it in focus. I've done this many times before. I'm going to do it again because there's always someone new or some naysayer, okay? And we're going to read it through the camera lens, okay? So let's get that into focus. Okay, nigger. And it reads N-I-G-E-R. You see that? And look at the spelling, just like in the Bible. N-I-G-E-R. Nigger, not Niger, or not Niger. I don't know, want to focus. Hold on. Try to do this with one hand. Let me hold it. There we go. It says Negro, dark-skinned one. Damn it. Trying to get this to focus, and it just don't want to focus. It's got to keep moving. Hold on, let me. There it is. Negro, dark-skinned one, black, a negro. Now usually a contemptuous or vulgar term. See, now it's a contemptuous or vulgar term, but in the beginning it was simply a description. So it's as simple as that. If you call someone nigger, it didn't have a negative connotation to it. It was just simply a description of someone who was dark. Nothing more, nothing less. It wasn't an insult or anything like that. So now that I've established those facts, let's read read another biblical fact about the and this is from Babylon to Timbuktu. You could actually Google this. Babylon to Timbuktu was written by Rudolph R. Windsor. All right, history of the ancient black races, including the black Hebrews. It just should be Hebrews because there's no such thing as black people. That's, once again, that's a byword that was created by, well, the guy that you see on the screen. But nevertheless, what is showing you that they were a dark race of people. All right, it said, and including, all right, because there is a separation between the dark races, like the dark people in India, the dark people in the islands of Samoa, the dark people in Australia, the dark people in Africa, and the dark Israelites. They're three different races of people, yet they're all very, very dark. All right, I've seen Indians from India that are darker than Africans, or just as dark, but they're not called black. Think about that. But this is page 84 and from Babylon to Timbuktu, and it reads, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem in 70 AD. General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter during the period of the military governors of Palestine. All right, that's the land of Israel, Canaan. All right, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Judeans, it says Jews, but we're talking about Judeans, fled into Africa, fleeing Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. All right? So the dark Jews that we just read about in Jeremiah 42, many of them, millions, it was way more than a million, fled into Africa to blend in with other dark people. That's why there were certain parts of Africa on maps in 1783 that read Negro land. All right? So there was a separation. As a matter of fact, when you look at the artifacts from slavery, you never saw a sign that said African slaves. It always said Negroes. All the relics said Negro because there was a difference between a Negro and an African, a so-called African. Because Africa is named after a Edomite, a so-called white man named Scipio Africanus. All right, so being African is that's a made-up name. That just the way Columbus named all the islands and renamed everything. This is what Esau does. It tells you that in Psalms 49 and 11. You know that he was renaming everything. And one of the main reasons he did that was to create confusion and to hide who their biblical nationality. And when you understand who the Edomites are, you would understand why they would want to hide that. Now, as we go forward, now we're going to go into this definition of Ham. Okay? This is from the Young's Dictionary Bible, the Young's Dictionary Bible. And the scholars that put it together are all Jewish. As a matter of fact, it said President Institute of Holy Land Studies, Jerusalem. So let's go to Ham, and I'll see if I can put that in focus as well. The definition of Ham, because it spans on 2 pages, and on page 255 and 256, because it's at the bottom of 255, and the rest of it reads on 256. But it reads, a son of Noah, father of Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. See further on these 4. While they all may have been dark-skinned, they were not the forefathers of the Negroid races, but rather the peoples associated with Egypt in the north continent of Africa. That was the land of Canaan, where all those biblical things took place between the Israelites and the Egyptians and the Philistines, which is the Philistines is how you modern day say Palestine. All right, those were full of Africans, so-called Africans. It says, but rather a people associated with Egypt in the north of the continent of Africa. The Egyptians thought of Canaan as one of their own provinces. Why? Because they were the same people. All right, so I give it to you backwards. Let's see if I can get that in focus. See, it says forefathers. They were not the forefathers of the Negroid races. See, and who are the Negroid races? The 12 tribes of Israel, Jacob's sons. Okay, because they don't give you they don't tell you who the Negroes are. So by process of elimination, there's the first part of the definition: a son of Noah, father of Cush, Egypt, Put, Canaan. See further on these 4. While they all may have been dark-skinned, they were not the forefathers of the Negroid races. All right. Next set of evidences is coming from the Zondervan Compact Dictionary Bible. Same definition, also put together by Edomite and Jewish scholars they're both Edomites, because Edomites are, the Jewish people are Edomites as well, by race. But the original Zondervan's was in 1967. This one was in 1993. And now the latest ones, the newer editions of them, they removed this definition. I wonder why. But this is Ham, and it reads, Ham, perhaps hot, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood, he became the progenitor of the Negroid he became the progenitor, father of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So the people who built Egypt were also a dark flesh people, or should I say the people who ran Egypt, because Egypt was built up forcefully by the forced labor of the Israelites. But the people who were in control of that land were dark flesh Hamitic people, who also are the enemies of the dark flesh Israelites. All right. So you so-called African Americans, you're not African at all. You are refugees in Africa, and they conveniently leave that portion of history out. Okay. So now let's go to a couple points in the Bible, because in this video I'm going to show you about 5 minutes of it. What he does is he shows you the Olmecs, and he just points out the fact that Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, that Africans were here before, and he gives you a couple different things, the proof of that, because there were different tribes where they found arrowheads, and I guess and different things of that nature, and they found out that this metal was metal that was created by tribes in Mali, and Moors that were in Mali and different parts of Africa. Okay, in West Africa. So this is 1 Kings 10 and 22, and it reads, "For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram," who Hiram was worked for King Solomon and was indeed a so-called African and Hamite. All right, and he was a dark flesh. His mother was an Israelite, so he was a dark flesh man, but he was a Hamite, because your lineage is through your father, not your mother. And it says, "Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks." So when we go to 1 Chronicles or 2 Chronicles, the 9th chapter, in the 21st verse, it gives you the same breakdown. It says, "For the king's ship went to Tarshish with servants of Hiram. Every 3 years once came the ships of Tarshish, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks." And when you look up that word peacocks, it says turkeys, and turkeys are indigenous to America. So we know that the dark flesh Israelites and the dark flesh Hamites, Africans, own the because those ships belonged, were controlled by King Solomon. So we know that these two dark races had journeys over to the Americas. Hence the reason why the Northern Kingdom knew the route to the Americas, as it is written in the Apocrypha. All right, because Christopher Columbus, in the book Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, which I also have behind me, Christopher Columbus used the books of Ezra, which are written in what I'm about to read in the Apocrypha, and some different scriptures in Isaiah, to come to the Americas. Because he knew that the Israelites, all right, had come to the America. And there's evidence of that in the movie 1492, which came out in 1992 with Gerard Gardner. I think that was the 400th anniversary or something to that effect. And in that scene when it says, when he talks about Ezra was a Jew. Because he was like, "Why do you believe? Why do you want to go on this journey so bad?" And he was like, "Well, because of Ezra." And then his companion said, "But Ezra was a Jew." All right, so he knew that the tribes had came here to the Americas. So let's read the account in the Bible, and it reads, this is 2 Ezra chapter 13 and 40, and it says, "And those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the water, so they came into another land. But they took up counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth further into a country where never mankind dwelt, that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land, and enter into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High showed them signs and hell sealed the flood till they were passed over. For through the country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and the same region is called Asareth. All right, and as a matter of fact, you have Jewish encyclopedias that say that Asareth is the Americas. It's, the islands in South America. So, without any further ado,
Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Exactly. I mean, never mind the question of like how you can discover a place where the inhabitants are watching you arrive from the shore. They weren't wearing pants. Is that what somebody said? I like that. So anyway, there were actually many other mariners before Columbus that discovered America as well. Decades earlier, even eons earlier, there were so many people that were coming across these islands and this continent. But it's only been in the last century that evidence has surfaced and continually grown to indicate that many of these pre-Columbian explorers might have come from Africa. So the first scientist to promote this possibility was Leo Wiener. Born in Russia, Wiener immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century on his way to British Honduras, where he planned to open a vegetarian commune. Well, when that turned out not to be the dream job he expected, he moved back to the United States and he became a professor at Harvard University, as one does. But in his time in Mesoamerica, he started noticing things. There were lots of things that led him to encounter certain discoveries that made him consider that possibly if the origins of American civilization might actually be in Africa. So he observed so many linguistic and botanical and other similarities that between 1920 and 1922, he published an extensive 3-volume piece called Africa and the Discovery of America. Now, unfortunately, this is 1920s, so
I would love to get my hands on those 3 books.
Had been done work had been done to support his botanical theories, because everyone knows over raiding tombs in Egypt and things like that. Not the Howard Carter. So
see, those botanical, he's talking about plants. So what he was proving is that there are plants in the islands that weren't indigenous to the islands, but were yet indigenous to the west coast of Africa. All right, so that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Israelites on the west coast of Africa were going back and forth to the islands. All right, they were going back and forth to the islands to visit their people and doing dealings with the Northern Kingdom. That's the untold history that we've come to rationale that's the case here.
Didn't have a whole lot of other stuff than the names to support him. However, he knew that other clues must exist. For example, he pointed out that Columbus himself was aware that African mariners had preceded him. In his diary of his second voyage, Columbus tells of how the natives of Hispaniola actually had given him gold-tipped metal spearheads that they said were brought by black-skinned people who had come in large boats from the south and southeast. Coincidence? I think not. No. So what's interesting about that, so upon returning to Spain, is that he actually took the spearheads and he sent them away and they had them assayed, and it turned out to be that these spearheads were covered in this metal, this alloy that the inhabitants called guanin, and the metallurgists actually found out that this was an alloy of 32 parts. It was like 18 of gold, 6 of silver, 8 of copper, which, matched the metal used in spearheads made in Western Africa for thousands of years, as carried by medieval African warriors, including the Mali and the Moors.
There it is. All right. Including the Mali and the Moors. Enough said. Call halal Yahweh Bashan Abashai, Bahashem Rakakwadash, Wa Abba Babal, and Shalom.